Welcome to the Thriving Artist Podcast, where we share strategies and support for artists to thrive.
We know that the art world can feel like a lonely place, and we want to provide a network of support, impactful strategies, and an abundance of encouragement to help you grow your authentic art career.
We're your hosts. I'm Jamie Smith.
And I'm Kaylan Butine, and we are also the co-founders of the Thrive Together Network, a community of female and non-binary identifying artists and artists who are caregivers.
We truly believe in community over competition, and we're so glad you're here. Enjoy this episode.
Welcome to this episode of the Thriving Artists Podcast. We are so glad you're here. I'm Kaylan Butine, one of your hosts, and my monthly money habit includes giving myself a real paycheck each month where I transfer money from my business account to my family's joint account.
I'm Jamie Smith. I'm your second host, and I always feel better once I've taken care of my numbers and invested time in my relationship with money. So in episode 10, our last episode, we talked about why you should know your numbers as an artist. We shared some really important reasons, including why you should celebrate and that we want you to take time off. It's a really great episode. So go back and have a listen, because in this episode, we have broken down how to know your numbers in 5 easy steps. We are all about the 5 easy steps, it seems like, Kaylan.
Yes, we are.
I really like it. I will say that these are very simplified as we were doing, a short podcast with you. And if you want to know more, we have actually just launched a business planning course for artists on the network. And I have included financial spreadsheets and actual documents to help you get going on your journey. So we're really excited about that. This episode, though, is going to be super useful for you if you are at the beginning. So if you feel lost with your money, if you feel like you don't have a financial system, we are going to talk about tracking your money and give you great tips to get started. If you are someone that has a system in place, you've built money habits with your relationship with money, I still think this episode is going to be super useful because it's going to keep as a reminder, and I'm hoping it'll give you some real pat on the back moments, which I love. So Kaylan, I'm going to have you start us off and share our first step in knowing your numbers.
Awesome, Jamie. Okay, so step number 1 in our 5 easy steps to know your numbers episode is book in time. Time. I know this is a very, very valuable resource, time, but putting in the time to know your numbers, especially if you are just building your money habits right now at the beginning, is so important. I guarantee there will probably be some resistance that comes up for you when you're starting to do all this investigation into your money, into sort of the business side of being an artist and the financial landscape that you have built around you. Some of that resistance probably means that you know that this is very important work, and it can be triggering to talk through and look at the numbers and work through all of these things. So what we want to do is what we want you to do is to give yourself plenty of time, carve out a time on your calendar to really get things in place, just to get yourself organized. Make sure you know what your passwords are for your accounts, what's your banking information, getting all of those organization details lined up before you really dig into this is one of those steps. And speaking of steps, sometimes we kind of put things on our calendar like to do money that are like these big nebulous words. And it's like, well, what does that really mean? I'm going to do my money. So part of this step 1 is taking time to think through and strategize what it is you're going to do when you time block for doing your money, right? So you're going to kind of think through the steps, you're going to strategize, and some of the steps that Jamie's going to talk about in this episode will be what we want you to do with that time. But we really recommend to start that you time block 3 to 4 hours just to start wrapping your head around all this, to go through some of the steps in this episode. And hint, we did a podcast episode all about time blocking and how to time block effectively, which you can listen to on episode number 4 if you want more strategies for how to make the most of that time. But again, step number 1 in knowing your numbers is putting aside the time, giving it time, get yourself set up, do the actual work of getting yourself organized. And then Jamie's going to lead you into some of the other steps for what you can do with that time.
And it's so easy to put off. So I think it's just, that's why we started it with step number 1 is the time. So once you have that booked in, you're sitting down, what I really want you to do and what we want you to do is to start with last month. So we are actually going to track the money that came into your business and the money that came out of it. The thing with tracking is that it's really only useful if we know what we're doing with the data in the end. So tracking for tracking's sake isn't useful and it typically doesn't last. So what we want to do is we want to use the last month in our business because this is going to create a recent snapshot of our business money health. So it is our closest way of knowing where we stand right now. And when we talked about in our last episode, episode 10, why you should know your numbers, is that this is kind of the time where it starts to feel scary because it feels like I feel behind. I feel like my numbers are gonna tell me a story I don't want to hear. But it is so important to know that actually, no matter what the situation is, it's going to be empowering that you've taken control of it. So the last month's snapshot is actually going to give us the base of a real situation. It doesn't help us to start our money, 6 months ago, because that's not going to help us move forward. So start with last month.
I just want to say, Jamie, that I've really been thinking about that a lot since we've been having these conversations around money and since our last episode came out, because money is one of those things that I think we do, or we might want to just ignore it and put it off and pretend like it's not there. But actually, as female artists, as small business owners, money can be something that can really help us feel empowered. And we don't always have to feel empowered when we have a lot of money, but when we have the knowledge of our money, when we have the strategies, when we really understand what we want to do in our business, and when we are empowered to make good, smart financial decisions, we can't do any of that without taking the time to know our numbers, which is exactly what we're talking about today. So it is about empowerment, but you don't have to be rich or have a lot of money to feel empowered, but you do need knowledge and strategy to feel empowered in your numbers. And
it's so true, Kaylan, because what I've learned is that from working with all the artists that we've worked with, no matter how successful an artist is or where we're at, typically we all feel like we don't have enough time or we don't have enough money.
Yes.
And I have seen that actually progress is the thing that is deeply meaningful and makes us feel successful. Not, the number of shows, the number of paintings sold, all of that matters, over the bottom line, but it's actually the progress of what that painting looks like to the next. It's the progress of what show happened and what work you put in. So all to say is that when you're looking at all this, it's about progress. And this is why we're asking you to start. Yeah. Start with last month. And what you're going to really collect right now to sit down and do last month is you're going to need your credit card statements, PayPal, anywhere that money came in and out of. And one thing I will say is that as you're doing this, money journey, like Kaylan mentioned in our intro, is really having that separate business account from your personal bank account. So if that's something you don't have, I would say that's like a bonus tip of a first step is to get organized with the separate account, because that's how you're going to start to see this progress. And it's going to lead us really into step number 3 here, which is our first step of kind of getting clear on where we're at, is you need to go through your expenses. So we're looking at last month, that's what we just discussed, and you're going to go through your expenses. So if you don't have a system for doing this, I highly recommend just using a simple spreadsheet. So a Google spreadsheet, Excel, and all you're going to do is have a column and you're going to go through this bank statement. You're going to go through your Visa and write down what the expense was. So artwork archive, $15. You're going to put that and you're going to put the amount in the other column. And it sounds tedious, but you are literally going to go through, and it's not glamorous, and you're going to mark down every single expense. And, once you have a few months of doing this under your belt, because I hate to break it to you, but what I'm asking you to do is actually do this every month. For now, you're going to start with last month, but eventually you can move to using an app or a bookkeeping software that can really help make this easier. But what I think is so important is that by manually writing this out at the beginning, especially if this is something you're not used to, you're creating money habits, and you're also getting very clear on what you're spending your money on. And Kaylan, I know you use an app, so I was wondering what you use and what you like about it.
So I use the QuickBooks app called Self-Employed. All of my income and expenses, all of my accounts are linked to this app. So literally everything that comes in, everything that goes out is accounted for in this app. And what the app does is it categorizes those expenses, income, or purchases. But I will say one of the things that I really like and appreciate about this app is that I'm not completely into like automated zone. I have to actually go through each transaction every time there is a transaction, whether that's 10 transactions or a month or 1,000 transactions a month. I have to go in and approve that transaction was categorized in the way that I wanted it to be categorized. So there is that level of automation, but I'm also seeing my money, right? I'm seeing where it's going. So it's basically what Jamie is asking you to do manually. I'm kind of doing it in that app. And because it is on an app, and I know I always have that task of checking the transactions and approving the categories, I actually I pull up the app every 2 to 3 days, sometimes every day. So I am kind of always taking about 5 minutes to just review my money, checking into my money landscape, seeing where things are headed and kind of what is going on in my accounts, which really helps me feel like I have a pulse on my money. But it also eliminates some of that weight of, just not knowing and having no idea, right? Like I'm always kind of connected. It doesn't stress me out, but I can like get into the zone with the knowledge and then detach because I know things are organized and sort of in their place.
Mm-hmm. I love that. And I think the biggest thing we want to emphasize with this, all these podcasts right now that we're doing around money is just finding your own system. And just because there's so many mental blocks when it comes to money. So we just wanted to give you some tangible steps, which is either, a chart or an app, but finding that thing that will really just allow this to happen, like allow yourself to sit down and do it. I think is just so important.
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize too, that I think starting manually is really the place to start. Like it might be easy for you to hear me talking about this app that I love and use, and you think that's going to solve your money problems. But I will say that I used to track my art business manually in the way that Jamie is describing before I moved to the app. And I think going through everything manually for a season is very important. It gets you those habits that you talked about, Jamie. It really puts you in the place of understanding and giving sort of the appropriate space and power that your money deserves, because you're spending that time to like really process every transaction, which is what we should be doing. Money is an important thing in our lives, and we want to value it and, take care of it.
I had a business like mentor say to me once that really stuck with me is that as humans, we're so funny because we spend so much time and energy worrying about money and trying to make more of it, but we spend it so carelessly often.
Yes.
We spend it so easily.
Yes.
And it's a funny, like, conundrum where it becomes this worry, but then it's so easy comes out of the account. So,
Absolutely.
we just want to, I just love what you said about, taking that care with it is so important.
Hi friends, dropping in to share some information about an incredible course I'll be co-teaching with my awesome work partner, Isadora Stowe. Isadora and I have led 3 rounds of the popular course Wearing All the Hats, a professional practices course for artists, and we are offering a new limited time course for the artists in our community. We find that women artists who are caregivers, and artists who are marginalized often struggle with feeling empowered to take up space, time, and resources in their own lives. So Isadora and I have created a 3-week course titled Time, Space, Agency, and Empowerment to give you tools and resources to take up more space in your life, have more agency, and have a stronger voice for your art career. We will investigate the roles of time, space, agency, and empowerment in our lives and do it in a group setting. From that place of knowing, we will create a system that you will be able to continuously be inspired by and build from as you cultivate an empowered life and career as an artist. So if you want to join us in this course or to learn more, please head to the thrivetogethernetwork.com website for full course details. The course will be hosted on the Thrive Together Network, and you can see how to enroll in this course. It's a 3-week course running Wednesday nights from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesday, November 2nd, November 9th, and November 16th. We would love to have you join us as we are on this journey of becoming more empowered artists together. Okay, so step number 4 in 5 easy ways to know your numbers is to list your earnings. This is one of the exciting parts, right? This is the money that is coming into your business, the green, the cash flow. Again, collect all of the accounts, right? Think of all of the ways that your money is coming into your business. Maybe you're getting a paycheck from a university. Maybe you've created sales from your website. Maybe somebody sent you some money over Venmo. Make sure all of those accounts are linked to your business account, or if they're not, make sure you're transferring that money, the correct amount of that money, so you can see all of those transactions, right? Sometimes as artists, we get income or we get expenses from a lot of different places. And so it's really important to organize that and bring that all together in one system so you can see it. So again, this takes time to get all of that information organized and to document each expense and each point of income. But this is what will really help you see that financial picture, because the whole point of tracking is to then take our income total number and minus it from our total expenses, right? And we want that number to be positive. So when you take your income and your expenses and you subtract your expenses from your income, we hope that you end up in the green, meaning that you are earning more than you are spending. However, if that number right now is negative, if it's not positive, and you're spending more money than you're making, while your business is technically operating at a loss, that is totally normal for emerging artists, for artists who are building their businesses, and that is okay.
Totally. And the thing is that a big reason why it's okay is that now you know.
Yes.
So the whole point of tracking and knowing this end number, so this is whether you're using a chart or an app, you just want to make sure you know this end number, because this end number, what it means is where you are at right now. If that end number is a positive, your art business is making you possibly extra money, or your art business might be paying all of your life expenses. You might be a full-time working artist, and that number needs to equal what it costs you to live your life. Mm-hmm. So it's just really important that we know what the point is of all this tracking and all this tedious work, because we want that end number. And that end number is going to allow us to make better goals. So when I quit my full-time job to be an artist and follow my dream, I did none of this. I felt the feelings and
You
it was
learned
time
the
to
hard
leave
way.
my job. And I didn't have a plan. And so what I love and what I'm so passionate about business planning and knowing your numbers is that you can actually over time get that end number to be your full-time income. And you will know when it is exactly time to leave your day job because that number will support you because it pays for your life. And your end goal might not be to, have this be your full-time gig. Kaylan and I, our day job is technically TTN and all this work we do, and we're super passionate about it. And our art is, our side income as well as our passion, and it's all, who we are. So making your art pay all your bills, it does not have to be your goal.
Mm-hmm.
But what's so important about knowing this is that you can set better goals. So I want to make sure for me personally, my art business needs to pay for my studio. It needs to pay for my art business expenses. And I have a goal of it paying for a little bit more because I want to make sure that it's making me an income. So for example, that end number, if you see it's $500 a month positive, well, that's great. But maybe, your goal is 2,500, and what it can do now, because we know the reality of it, it will push us to, send that extra newsletter, make that reel, do a follow-up instead of being on the hamster wheel of feeling powerless and just feeling like it's a real void. I'm putting out all these things and I have all these goals, but you don't have a number that matches it. So the true numbers, as hard as it is to get there and to face that reality, they allow us real choices. And I think that is truly powerful.
It is so powerful, really knowing where we stand, the awareness of where our money is going and where it's coming in is what is empowering. And I love that about these conversations. So we are at our 5th step in the 5 easy steps to know your numbers. Number 5 is make a commitment. Sometimes this is the hardest part. It is great to do 1 month of tracking, but really this chart that Jamie's asking you to set up, or these apps that, you might be interested in using, these things are living documents and they're really only useful when you use them over time, right? When you're using them consistently. 1 month is great, but 6 months or a year of tracking this information, of having this information about your numbers in your brain and on your spreadsheets really starts to tell a story. So you can see, kind of how you are moving in the world as an artist. And this is especially important for artists because usually our income fluctuates so much month to month, right? Even if you have a day job that also supports you, your art income might be much higher towards the holidays and then much lower in the summer. Or maybe you always host a retreat or teach during the summer, you teach camps, and then, you have these other months where your income is lower. So it is important to track this over time, to make a commitment to knowing your numbers so that you get, a larger picture and really know your story overall.
Which helps with planning. And as artists, I feel like we're living in this sort of, we're in seasons with our business and our practice. So money can help just make sure that evens out over time so that you end the year without a surprise. And I will say by doing this tracking, your taxes are going to be no big deal. Let me tell you. So I feel like we could make so many episodes about this topic, and we probably will. But for now, we wanted to say, this is important. Money is a tool. It can bring great things in this world, and you deserve to be part of it. And sometimes it feels like maybe you don't deserve that, but you do.
You do.
And we really hope you learned a lot from this episode. I, again, do this whole thing in much more detail in the business planning for artists course. It's on the network now, $90 for our members, and it's at your own pace, but I will be there to answer questions, which is really exciting. I've taught this class many different times, but I've not been able to do it with a community attached. So I'm able to be there. I've set up prompts, and yeah, I'm just really excited about this work together.
Yeah, I just value so much the energy and effort that you've put into this topic, Jamie. It's empowered me to know my numbers more and to be more aware of my financial landscape. And that therefore makes me a more confident artist and a more empowered businesswoman, which, is what I want for myself, right? And I just think like, imagine how great it would be if all us artists felt this way, especially all of us female artists. It would just, make for such an inspiring world.
It would be a very beautiful, wacky place, and I would love to be there for that.
So, thank you so much for joining us today. Please leave a review if you are enjoying our podcast. We're putting a lot of time and energy into these, and we hope they're helpful and useful to you. And we want to hear what you think. As always, Jamie and I are here for you. We are cheering you on, and we truly believe in the work that you are doing as thriving artists.